Okay, so we cannot escape Unix, right? If we are working with genomic data, it's very unlikely that we can manage to do things without using Unix. So when genetic data using a single gene or a couple of genes, 100 genes, we could manage using Excel or text editors and visual interfaces and so on. But with files that can contain 4 million lines or even more, it is impossible that we can do this type of analysis without using Unix or some kind of programming, basic even. So yeah, to analyze high-throughput sequencing data, you need Unix. There's no way you can escape this. And if you escape it, it will always chase you. I mean, just learn it as soon as you can. I mean, don't try to escape it. So, yeah, so as I said, the type of files we will be receiving will look like this, and they are huge. And we want to do things and so that we achieve analysis that will look like this, that we can interpret, we can understand. So to go from this to this, there's no way we can do it with a small laptop on user interface with Windows or Mac base or whatever. When you learn Unix, you will feel like you have superpowers. You can do things, I mean, if you haven't worked with this, you will be amazed by the kind of things you will be able to do. And if you have worked with this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. So yeah, let's do it. The way it looks, the environment you will be working on. So it's about typing and not about moving things around with your mouse, okay? So the Unix file system is a file system, as it says, hierarchical file system. So the top of this hierarchy is what we call the root, which is represented by slash, like this. And under the root, we usually have several folders. One of the folders that is under the root is usually the home folder. It's called home folder. And under this home folder, there are the different users. So when we say, this could be a little bit confusing sometimes, because when we say home, sometimes we refer to the home folder of one user, right? So so this is the system. So we need to learn to navigate in this system, right? So we navigate using what we call paths. So what are paths, right? So if this is our system again, a path is the path, the way that leads you that brings us from one place to another. So in this case, the path that goes to the directory work there is under Peter, that is under home, that is under root, is root, home, Peter, work, right? The same, the path that goes to the directory called work under John, home, could be home, John, work. Notice that there are two directories that have the same name, but they are distinguished by where they are located, okay? This may seem very stupid now and very silly, but sometimes in the exercises, there are errors such as, not using the right path for a folder, thinking that you are referring to a folder and actually you are referring to another one. So yes, as I said, this work directory is not the same as this work directory, right? So you can have number 16 in two streets. It doesn't mean that they are the same house, right? The number 16 in different streets, there are two different houses, so it's the same thing. I mean, there are thousands of Unix commands. Some are basic, some are advanced. Sometimes, I mean, in the lab I did my PhD, it was the game was to see who was finding the most useful command that nobody knew about, right? So we were working on using basically, well, the same 20, 50 commands all the time. And suddenly one person would come with the 51, like, I found this command that does this. And there are a lot, I mean, there are a lot. And there are many things that you may want to do with your files. And there is, in many occasions, there is a Unix command that does what you want to do. So Google it. I mean, use really Google to find. So, whoops, basic, very, very basic commands. So ls stands for list. So ls lists the different files that are in a directory where you are. cd stands for change directory. And pwd stands for print for a working directory. Okay, ls, they said, right? So if I do ls /, it will tell me what is under root, home, user, bin, right? If I do ls home, what would I get? Next one, ls work. What happens if I do ls work? Work, right? Yeah. Because it doesn't, I mean, there is nothing, if I'm assuming that I'm in root, there is nothing called work here. So it will just say nothing, right? Okay. Yes, so it doesn't say anything. cd, same, right? If I do cd /, takes me here. If I do cd home, takes me here. If I do cd home Peter, it takes me here, right? As I said before, if you get lost, you can do pwd where you are. So those were what we call the absolute paths. You can also have the relative paths. So, well, let's start with this first. So there's how do you call it? Shortcuts in, yeah, dot means here. And dot means one above, right? Okay, so this is, as I said before, the absolute paths are ls /, which means root, home, Peter, work. Those are the absolute paths, right? Then we can have the relative paths. For example, if I go to Peter, right? I do cd home Peter. I am here, I'm located here, right? If I want to list what is inside work, I could do ls home Peter work, so use the full path, or I could just do work, right? So if you are in your neighborhood and the person tells you, I don't know, where does this, I don't know, Melissa live? I can say, okay, she lives in number 18, right? Because we are in the same street, for example. But if I'm somewhere else and somebody tells me I'm in another country, where does Peter live? I cannot say in number 18. I have to say number 18 from street, blah, 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 from town, blah, 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 and so on, right? So here is the same thing. So if I'm located in Peter, I can say ls work because I'm located in Peter and the system is able to see work, okay? And if I do ls home while being inside Peter, what happens? Nothing, right? Because inside Peter, there's nothing called home. This is more confusing when you explain it than when you do it, but anyway. So those would be the relative paths, right? So if I'm in Peter, if I'm located in Peter, I do cd home Peter, right? I can do ls dot. What do I get if I do ls dot? And it says work and papers, right? If I do ls dot dot, Peter and John, yes, exactly. And if I do ls dot dot / dot dot, I will get home user bin, right? And and then I can go back, so I can go up. So this dot dot / dot dot would get me up to the root, and then I can go down, and I can do user, and this ls dot dot slash dot dot slash user will get me whatever is under user, right? And so on.
Okay.
Very useful. CD, if you type just CD, it takes you to your home directory, not to the directory called home, but to your home directory, which would be home, in your case, home user something, right? So if I'm also, sorry, this little tilde means my home directory. So this little tilde is synonym to home slash user one in my case. So if I know there is a directory under my home directory, I don't have to type home user one and then the directory name. I can just type this tilde, okay? Okay, something that is very useful is the tab completion. So sometimes we have very long file names or folder names, so we can use tab. Let me see if I'm here. So the arguments are the options that you can add to the different commands. So as I said before, there are thousands of commands, and each command has sometimes a couple, sometimes 10, sometimes hundreds of possible arguments. So that multiplies the number of tasks that you can do, right? So for example, ls has a lot of options. You can use man for the manual. Viewing files. So one of the nice things about using Unix is that we can view and we can check files without opening them for editing. So when we are working with files that are so huge as the ones we are working with, this is, I wouldn't say it's useful. I would say it's critical. We need to use this, right? So we can have less and more. I will show you what they do. We have head, tail, and we have also cat.